a question I get a lot is just what you described. You bought your first rental property and now what? Well, here's the thing. You want to get that property out of your name because every day that it's in your name, that's another potential for somebody to be injured on the property. Maybe your tenant's dog bites someone, and the next thing you know, you're being sued, and hopefully your insurance is there to cover you. But if it's not, then you've got some real problems on your hand. And I have a friend that I was golfing with recently, and that's what he described to me, that his tenant's dog bit the neighbor who was on his property, on his tenant's property, and he still got sued. And the insurance company said, hey, you're not covered. So if you have rental property, then the first thing you want to do is make sure you put it into a structure. Typically, it's going to be a limited liability company, maybe a land trust if you have a debt on the property, and then a land trust owned by that LLC. And what that's going to do is that's going to insulate you from any types of claims that could be brought by a tenant or somebody that's on their property that injures themselves. More importantly, when you're setting up that structure, if anonymity is important to you, that is, if you don't want your tenants to know that you own the property, then there are ways you can create that structure so you can have an LLC. Your name won't be associated with the LLC. And if somebody were to look at the LLC, they will never see you. So that's a mistake they see a lot of investors make typically when they're creating their structures, is they forget about the anonymity component, that you can't sue what you can't see. And if I'm owning assets, I definitely do not want, the tenants knowing where I lived. So if I have a crazy tenant, the last thing I need is them showing up at my house and yelling at my spouse or my young kids because they're not happy with the situation at the rental property. So these are things that you need to focus on as a real estate investor, especially after you bought that first property. Because I tell people, your first house, you're most vulnerable because you're not sure what you're doing quite yet.